and a very warm welcome to this month's Pacecast. I'm Anita Pace and thank you for joining us. And it is our first Pacecast of the year. I hope the new year is going very well for you. And it's certainly going very well for us at Pace, because I'm delighted to say that our guest today in the studio is Sean Royce. Sean has recently stepped down from the Chief Executive role at Quickline, but I'm looking forward to talking to him about his successful career. Hello and welcome to the studio, Sean.
Good morning, nice to see you. Nice to be here.
So thanks for joining us this morning. You will, I hope, have brought something in.
I have.
It's a mystery item.
I have. I've bought 3 mystery items, actually, but they're all kind of linked.
Okay, let's share.
Here we go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
And you'll like this, actually. I dug it out of my loft, believe it or not.
Sean is holding up.
What have we got here? I'm holding up a picture of,
oh my God!
of a Hull City football team from 2007-8, the iconic season just about to start when we got promoted. And in the middle, in between, or either side of Phil Brown, the manager, is one Anita Pace
at
the time. And me as well. I'm the other side of Phil Brown. Just next
God,
to
look
Brian
at
Holton.
us.
So
we
there
look
you go.
Pretty good there, don't we?
Yeah, we look very young. So that was 20 odd years ago, of course. Yes, I think that was 2007. So this is when we were at KCOM, and we had just sponsored the football team's shirts for 2 seasons, and there's a little bit of a story to it, actually, and Anita might put me right, and that's the problem, because we've worked together for a long time, Anita and I. So every time I tell a story, she says, well, that's not true. But it was something like, and you'll have been involved in the sponsorship deal.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, and I think it was Bonus at the time had pulled out, or had a very long run, and the football club were looking for some sponsorship. They just avoided relegation from the Championship. Literally in the last game of the season, Winner scored a goal at Cardiff. So the hopes weren't high at all, and they wanted a 2-year sponsorship deal. And I think for the shirts, and there wasn't too many takers at the time. We said we'd step in, and there was a big debate at the time about how much we would pay, because we knew that we were going to get relegated again. There were relegation favourites given the season before, and a big debate about how much it would go down. The cost would go down in the second year if we got relegated. And right at the end, it was really relatively modest. This is 20 odd years ago, 100 grand, 125 grand a year or something like that. And we said, look, okay, I'll tell you what, we won't reduce it if we go down, but we ain't going to put it up if we go up into the Premier League, which is like, and that was the deal that we struck. So there was no chance of us getting promoted, of course, because in 104 years, Hull City had never been in the top league. And that is what happened. The iconic season here. This is the team. We put Carew on the shirts fronts. Oh, Carew, which Anita used to run at KCOM at the time, the internet provider there, which we'll maybe talk about later on. And then, and of course, that was the season we got promoted. Went to Wembley. We won in the cup in the playoff, and we had the cheapest shirt sponsorship that there'd ever been before and since in the Premier League, because it was still 120 odd grand or whatever it was.
Yeah. Happy memories.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Well, thanks for bringing that in. It's so lovely to see the picture.
Yes, that was that one. And the other 2 gifts, because I brought 3.
Gifts? I love the term gifts. Are you giving these to me then?
Well, it's Christmas. We just had Christmas, haven't we? Are 2, what they're called, tombstones. So when a large corporate transaction happens and you get all sorts of advisors pitching in that cost a fortune to advise you to do what you already know, you sometimes get at the end of the transaction, when it completes, a tombstone. So the very first one that Anita's got in her hand now, and it looks like, for those that aren't on the TV right now or YouTube, it looks like a telephone box, an iconic KCOM telephone box. And it talks about and it congratulates the company on the transaction, which happened in 1999, when Kingston Communications, as it was then, floated on the London Stock Exchange, July 1999. That was given to us, and it was actually the IPO of the year. Anita was in investor relations a little bit later, I think, as well, so did all that. Yeah. And then pretty much 20 years to the day, that's another tombstone.
I've not seen that.
When we sold, it's even heavier, that one, which is exactly the same.
Oh, God, it is.
Looks like a telephone box. When we sold the business to Macquarie 20 years later on from we delisted from the stock exchange. for £627 million. And you get given those if you're lucky. And I've got 2 of them now, so there you go.
Oh, how nice.
So that was...
The end of an era.
It was, was, wasn't it?
Well, we will talk about KCOM and all the happy times and maybe some more challenging times because we were there a long time. But let's start it right back then. So let's talk about your childhood.
Yes.
So you're a local boy who's done good. So talk to us about...
Local boy.
Well, local, East Yorkshire.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so talk about your childhood and were there any early influences, do you think?
I've always been, I am a local boy. So I was born in down Headon Road in Hull a long time ago, 1967, as it happens. And I lived out I went to school at Withensea, and a terrible tragedy there only a few days ago in January. And went to school there. It was a tough upbringing, a tough school. I had a brilliant time, I hasten to add, and still in contact with lots of friends there.
Brilliant time through, because you're quite sporty, weren't you? So brilliant time through sport, or were you quite academic?
No, I was always relatively bright. I was never the brightest. I was always okay. I was pretty good. But I was a good sportsman. And at school in those days, and I think it's probably still the same now, but if you're very good at football or cricket or rugby, and you've got a bit of a personality, you can kind of get through, and that's kind of how it works. So I was always one of the better footballers and represented the county and things like that. So that was good fun. So I enjoyed that. I did sort of around the O-level time.
O-levels, yeah.
Yeah, do you remember those O-levels?
Do.
Started going out and liked to play too much football perhaps and cricket, and started drinking and liked girls and that type of thing. So didn't do as well as I should. Did A-levels at sixth form, same thing. Didn't do as well as I should, and ended up only getting 2 A-levels with low grades, and didn't get into university that I wanted to get into. In fact, I didn't get offered a degree course, so I ended up doing an HND at Newcastle Poly. So I spent 2 years at Newcastle. And that was kind of when I thought, I've got to start buckling up. So I sailed through that, he says. I did that, and I came back to Hull.
Yeah.
Because I still enjoyed playing football, and all my friends were still here. And as much as I had a fantastic time at Newcastle, and I'm still very good friends with lots of people up there now. In fact, I only went yesterday to the game 2 days ago. So I still go there quite a lot. But came back here and thought I'd better knuckle down and try and get some proper qualifications, because my CV doesn't look great with my A-levels and the lack of a degree, or I thought that.
And did you know at that point what you wanted to do?
Not really, no, but I did enjoy business, and when I mean business, I had an interest in it. So at that time, there was a lot of privatisations of companies in the Thatcher era, and I was always quite interested in Rolls Royce and BT and British Gas and all those flotations then. So I was always looking at the prospectuses, and I bought a few shares because I knew they were going to go up straight away on the first day of trading.
Really? So were you buying shares at that stage?
Yeah, well, to supplement my grant.
Right.
Because these were dead certs, and they'd always price them too low to make sure they were oversubscribed. And I was reading a lot about the business. I thought, this is all quite interesting. I quite like
So you had an interest in finance, interestingly, then?
Yeah, and I did do business studies at Newcastle.
Yeah.
And it had a finance module, which I quite enjoyed. And my dad and my mum said, if you become an accountant, you'll have a job for life. And there's a bit of me safe and secure about the way I'm wired.
And weren't our parents in those days, it was about getting a job for life, wasn't it?
No. Yes, it was.
It was about
very
different to these days. Yeah.
Be secure, get a job for life.
Job for life, yeah.
Which is very different. And I think you read lots of talk about the future of work now, and AI in particular, but even before that, people have 3, 4, 5 careers. Yeah. Because they'll be working until 70, 75. In our day, it was get a job, stay
in the same company.
If you can get 40 years out of it, brilliant. Yeah. So that was it. Get a job as an accountant, you'll always have a career. So, and I enjoyed business. I did quite enjoy the business side of accounting. So that's what I did. So when I left, when I came back to Hull to be with my friends and play football and stuff, watch Hull City, I went through, and this is showing my age now, went through the yellow pages.
Yeah, good old yellow pages.
Through the accountants and started ringing each one of them. And one guy, and this will have been September, October, winter, I guess, after the summer holidays when I came back from uni, was a guy called Mark Evans, who just set up a small accountancy firm down Beverley Road. Just him and another lady. And he said, yeah, I could use a trainee. So he took a chance and I worked with him for a year in 1980, whenever it was, 6, 7, something like that.
So that's interesting then. So you took the initiative to go through the directory, the Yellow Pages, so that's the classified directory to our younger listeners and viewers.
I've been on the milk rounds as well before
right,
that.
okay.
So Marks and Spencers and a few others like that. But I never, some I didn't really want to do and some I just didn't get through.
But presumably when you were making those calls to those accountants, you were getting lots of no's as well.
Yes.
So you had the resilience to keep going back.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I must have done because it wasn't the first one. It was M.A. Evans and Co. So I must have gone through A, B, C.
Got to M.
So I must have had all those rejections. But yeah, that's what I did. And I wanted to work in Hull as well, and in and around the area. So the milk rounds had me all going all over the place.
And were you living in Hull at this point?
I'd come back, and I was going back to the family home. Now, my mum and dad had started splitting up at the time. Right. So I came back. My sister was at Huddersfield Poly, but she was still there. So I came back here, but I was still living there. And I got a little car, a knackered old Toyota Celica, and drove into Hull and back to Evans. And I enjoyed it, and it was one of the accountants, very small accountancy firms like that. It's still going.
Is it?
Yeah, and it's on Transave now, and it's much bigger. And I'm still friends with Mark, who was just retired actually, and it's a much bigger firm now. Yeah. But it used to get small businesses that come in with a shoebox full of receipts and stuff and a cash book, and you'd have to work out what their profits were and work the tax out and the accounts and get them submitted. So that's quite fun. But after a while, and I was only there a year, I realised I quite enjoy people and having a bit of fun. And I could stay here forever and maybe get a job and be a partner or whatever, but I didn't really. There wasn't enough people to talk to, so I got another job at a business called Transline in Brands Burton as a cost accountant. It was costing up porter cabins and then working out how much you could sell them for, type thing, in Brands Burton. So I went there for another year. It was a bigger business, and there's a lot of people, and I got to know a few people there again. A couple I'm still friends with there. But again, that was just a little bit far out, so I spent a year there. And then again, showing our age, I saw an advert in the Hull Daily Mail for Kingston Communications were recruiting business trainees, graduates, and I thought, I'll give that a go.
This is 1989.
This is 1989. You know that very well.
Yes, I do.
And I got into it with a guy called Graham Jackson, who was one of the senior finance guys. Interviewing me. He was a big, and still is a big Hull City fan. He goes to every game, home and away, and has done for decades. He's proper old school football fan, which is lovely. I think we hit it off with the football rather than my education, and he recruited me. And I became a business trainee alongside a couple of other guys that had started, who I'm still friends with, or certainly one of them, and a lady called Anita Pace. Yeah.
But I'd gone in as marketing rather than finance.
You'd already started.
Yeah, I started the month before. I hadn't actually applied for a job. This isn't about me, but I'll just pick it up.
No. I want to interview you.
I wrote in speculatively.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and said. I actually wrote to two companies. I wrote to KCOM, Kingston Communications, and Smith and Nephew at the time, and they both invited me in for an interview. But Kingston, they just processed it faster and offered me the opportunity to come in as a business trainee. They
did it very quickly.
Yeah.
I came in, talked to Graham, and by the time I got back to work, and my mind plays tricks on me, he rang me. It might have been the following day, but it was certainly really quickly, and said, we'd like to offer you the job. Yeah. So at the time, Kingston was wholly owned by the council. And obviously before that, I'd had lots of council employees. So it was it was the council department to work out, because the terms and conditions were different and a little bit better, and they were looked after a little bit better, perhaps, something like that. But they were trying to get graduates, people in with a fresh perspective, people out from business. So lots of people had come in from other companies as well. So I was trying to mix it up, but it was kind of a mix between old council ways and heavily unionised stuff and a new biz. Yeah. And we were an intake of the
fresh blood.
Yeah, fresh blood, yeah. But so it was quite interesting. I remember sitting down with somebody and they were showing, because I was assigned to finance, you were assigned to marketing. You were much more I'm staying in marketing. I don't really want to go anywhere
Yeah,
else.
I was. I don't want to go and do finance. Why do I want to do that?
We were going up poles and digging holes and we're going selling yellow pages and doing all sorts. It was a great traineeship in that respect.
Yeah.
But you wanted to stay exactly, Mark. That's what I want to do. And because you've always been laser focused. I was a little bit more, what shall I do? But I remember sitting down with somebody in customer services, as was them. And I was asked to show me the job, and she said, just sit there for a minute, and she went away somewhere. And I wondered what was happening. And then the manager came and said, no, you do that, show them the job. And what it was she didn't want to show, I was more qualified than she was.
Oh.
She was heavily unionised, and I was she was being asked to show me her job, and she was worried she was going to lose her job.
Oh. So what happened?
She'd gone to her union rep to see what had happened, whether that was acceptable, and as it was, it happened. So, and that was kind of the environment we were in at the time.
Yeah.
We were clocking in, we had all sorts of...
Oh, very different times.
Yeah. And you had a director's canteen, you had a director's stairway to the canteen.
Yeah.
The rest of us had to go on to the normal canteen and different stairway. In those business, BT was exactly the same. It was based on BT terms and conditions. And I've done a lot of work with BT over the years. That was what it was like.
It was.
That was what it was like in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah. But I'd have nothing but fond memories, though. I can't remember ever being unhappy, or I suppose I didn't know any different, so I thought this is just the way it is. Yeah. We were very young, weren't we?
Yeah.
In our early 20s. It was great times. So you decided on... When did you decide you wanted to specialise in finance then? So you did the rounds at Kingston Communications, as it was.
I did that, yeah. Although I was always assigned to finance. So when we went climbing poles and digging holes and then going back, we always ended up going back to the core discipline that you were assigned to, and that was finance. So I thought, as I said at the time, I said earlier on, sorry, it was about that time and just before that, I thought I've got to knuckle down and get my CV right. I've been quite lucky to come into this business. And there's an opportunity here because I think I quite enjoy it. I can cost up these networks like I've been costing up these porter cabins, but I do need to get qualified, and everyone was telling you that. So I did my accountancy qualifications part time. So
was that an evening study?
Yeah, evening study, just from books.
Yeah.
So I did that. I passed my qualification. I didn't go to college or anything. I just read the books, did the exams. So 3 or 4 years later, I became fully qualified, which was, again, anticipation is an important part of business leadership, I think. And anybody that's watching this, if you want to move on in your career, think about what was going to happen next, either in the business, with your customers, with your partners, with your suppliers. So I could see there wasn't I think there was only about 3 qualified accountants in Kingston at the time. There was an awful lot of talk about can they float the business, will the council sell it, make some money, which was clearly going to make a lot of investment in the business, and there'd be lots of jobs coming in. And so I was thinking, and at the time, we'd started splitting the company up, so we'd started decentralising. So we had lots of limited companies being set up. In fact, you were running Kingston Internet Limited, which is what Carew on here was about. Was the brand from that. They all needed MDs, they all needed FDs, they all needed group financial controllers, and I was thinking there's only 3 qualified accountants. I've just got qualified. They'll stay here. Because there was lots of advisors saying, go to somewhere else. Now you've got qualified, leave somewhere else. There's jobs here. And that's exactly what happened. So the biggest limited company that we set up was the Hull Network business, Kingston Communications Limited. Yeah. They didn't want to lose their brand name. Yeah. And again, Graham Jackson, who recruited me here, he'd got the FD job. But he was of an age, and he always said he wasn't going to last long. He wasn't going to stay for very long. He took a risk, and he promoted me into the biggest finance role in that group, other than his. So I was his number 2. And that was a huge promotion for me. And I learned lots and lots from that. But again, somebody was brave enough to take a punt. Yeah. And I think you do have to be lucky. Yeah.
I agree. So so I'm just trying to think back now. It's a long time ago. So when was this? This was obviously prior to the float.
1996. Right. I'm very good with dates and numbers and stuff. But it was 1996 when we kind of started splitting the businesses.
I think that's when we launched Carew. 96.
It would have been around about then. because we had a voiceware business, which was software.
God, yeah.
We had a business called Business Systems, Kingston Business Systems, which was selling PBXs and telephone systems across the UK. We had a satellite business. We had a Yellow Pages business and a directories business. Because the view then was we can't survive on Hull alone. Hull at some point will be competed, and that's where all the profits and revenues came from. So we do need to diversify. And a chap called William Aylward came in. It was quite a handful.
Character and a half, he was.
Yeah. There's a whole podcast about him.
Yeah, there is. I wonder what he's doing now.
But he took the business. He managed to convince the council to sell the business and to on the back of all these subsidiaries. So we were a group of companies. And in fairness to him, that's exactly what we did. And a guy called Steve Main came in from BT. He took over the chief executive of the group.
And we shouldn't underestimate the effect the float had locally, because a lot of local people did very, very well.
40,000 people had shares in Kingston as it was then. Every conversation you would have with everybody would be, because the shares floated at £2.25 back in 1999, July 1999.
And what did they peak at? Can you remember?
Yeah, £17 something. Yeah. So within about a year and a half, it was on the back of the dot-com bubble. Our little company here in Hull that had all these little subsidiaries was bigger than Rolls-Royce. Had a market capitalisation bigger than Rolls-Royce.
I've got goosebumps because we could walk down the street. People loved Kingston, didn't they?
I mentioned Steve Main, but Steve Main was like a god. He would walk down Whitefriars and people would thank him because they'd bought shares for £200 that were all of a sudden worth $2,000. Yeah.
But people paid off mortgages and all sorts, didn't they? Yeah.
And the float, and it was a great time. So Steve Main and we had an interactive TV business called Kingston Interactive TV, which was called KIT, shortened to KIT. And it was, we launched the content, video, it was the first commercially available video on demand in the world.
And Sky came to see it?
Sky came to see it. So it was a great story when Rupert Murdoch came with his wife to see what is this technology that could host content rather than
started in Hull,
rather than satellite dishes. And again, you might put me right, but I'm pretty sure the story's right. He helicoptered in the biggest media mogul in the world that there's ever been. Helicoptered into Hull, into Willoughby, and then chauffeured into police escort or whatever it was, into Car Lane. And we'd been told he's going to come in for a couple of hours, have a look at the products, what he can do. Can he replace satellite dishes with this cheap technology called broadband? And he'd be there for 2 hours or whatever it was. And I remember Michelle at the time saying, "Well, we got China dishes. You'd had to go out and get China dishes from Debenhams next door or wherever it was." And anyway, that's
Alders, I think.
Was it Alders? Yeah. Alders, yeah. You know the retail place. So that's what we did. And he did come and had a look, and the share price went up. I think it went up 10%. It went up £1.20 or something on the back of the news that he came into town.
Oh God, yeah.
Unfortunately, and the business. I mean, it's. And I tell this story as well. The BBC, because of the work we'd done with interactive TV and the broadband network at the time there, the BBC put their, I don't think it was the only reason, but Greg Dyke, who was running the DG of the BBC at the time, he put the building, he was instrumental in putting the BBC building into Queen's Gardens. And we and they tested the interactive TV services on our platform. And I always say that the red button that you have today was started in Hull.
Oh,
yeah.
I've never heard you say that actually.
That interactive TV, but that was designed and tested in Hull, and that was launched throughout the world pretty much. And certainly that red button on your remote now is. I always think of that started in Hull.
And it's sad a bit that Hull doesn't get the recognition for all that pioneering stuff.
Yeah, we
did.
Pioneered all sorts of things.
We did.
That company. So there was that. And I remember as well with you, Anita, when we were looking to see how we could make this internet thing work.
Yeah,
you were working with Planet Online at the time, and how we could get this. It's got to be the future. And we were charging. It was dial-up at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, modems.
You remember all that?
Yeah,
and we just put a business plan together, and you and I were working on it with Neil Gower at the
Yeah.
time as well. And then literally, as we were about to sort of pitch it to the board, FreeServe happened. And FreeServe at the time, so it was internet was free. They made the money on a cut of the actual telephone call, which had certainly turned upside down the internet pricing model, and we had to go quickly back and sort that out as well.
I know.
But that was
But wasn't it a good? Didn't we learn a lot though? Don't you think?
Oh yeah, we were so lucky, really.
Yeah, we
there was
were.
all sorts of businesses,
Yeah.
and we were given a chance, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
And the business was at that time was always prepared to have a bit of a punt on something.
Yeah, it was.
And it was great
And that's,
fun.
I mean, we could sit here all morning and reminisce about our days at KCOM. But let's move on. So the float was very successful. So let's talk a bit more about your progression through the group as it became, KCOM Group, because you've gone on and done things since then. So let's dial it forward a bit. So the flotation, what happened after the flotation for you career wise? We
floated. I took this role on, and then there was all sorts of. We didn't all stay decentralised. Various parts of the business.
There was a lot of reorganisation over the years at KCOM, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was, and all of a sudden, I do remember when we were floating, when we were going through the process of the float, and I remember talking to the banks and things, because I was in charge of the biggest part of the business, that made the money. Although we had another part of the business, a national network business that was much faster growing but wasn't as profitable, a business called Torch. And we, I remember the advisors saying at the time, this will be, as soon as you float, it will be a very different business. You'll be under so much pressure. Every quarter you've got to release results, and that's exactly what happened. We floated every quarter. It was what your numbers looking like, what's the story for the business. There's too much cost here, there's too much cost there. So a lot of these businesses sort of started merging together within the group. With the internet business came into the Hull business, the national business. They had a network, we had a network, so we worked closer together there. So again, some of the bigger roles became even bigger, and I was very lucky that I was at the right place at the right time, and I ended up getting the FD not just of Hull but of the national business as well, and then commercial director as well as that. So that became a fairly steady career path all the way through, until about 2000 and I can't remember. Later on, he says, probably about 2000 and certainly when you wind forward to 2012.
Olympics. That's what I remember that year.
as an athlete, you will remember that. We'd bolted all the network businesses together, and we've been doing some software integration businesses as well across the UK. And there was a big push at the time with BT because broadband was the future, and what is going to be the next level of broadband connectivity? Well, it was full fibre, but it was too expensive to do that. It's too costly in the UK. So BT had done what they call fibre to the cabinets. They'd gone halfway, and there was a big push for us to do that in Hull. But I was saying to our board, if we're going to do it, we should do it all, because we're going to have to put it in halfway and then rip all the technology out to do it in some time in the future. So that we delayed things a couple of years whilst we had that debate, and ultimately we did. So we became the first provider in the UK to have a ubiquitous network that was full fibre.
Which means fibre to the home.
Which is fibre to the home for everybody that doesn't know the technology. So that's all the way from the exchange to the home. Copper networks, any part of copper in the network means it's a superb technology for telephone calls back in the 1800s and the 1900s, but is not designed for data. So it doesn't carry data very well at all. But fibre it's glass, so you can shine light down that. And that's what we did here in Hull. So it was expensive to do, costly to do. It's a big decision for the board to make. At the time, therefore, they needed to get some more cash, and they sold a lot of the national businesses. So we also sold all our networks across the UK to a business called City Fibre, who are now the second largest full fibre provider in the UK. So that's what we did, and the whole economy in Hull changed arguably because of that. So there's lots of research saying that I think it was £600 or £700 million of extra GDP was driven on the back of the network that we built here in Hull, the full fibre network, because it made
everything more efficient. Everything was just
more
faster.
efficient.
Yeah.
Small businesses were sprouting up. Big businesses were getting bigger. People could work from home. And Hull was and still is today. So it was 2019 when that network completed. I was the commercial and finance director responsible for all the networks across the UK. So I sold the networks to City Fibre. I led the business, the build here, which was quite scary because no one had ever done it. We weren't too sure whether it would work, and it did. I remember the very first customer we connected, and it worked, which was pleasing.
Pleasing.
Yeah.
It was pleasing. More than pleasing.
Yeah. So we did that, and then I took the managing director role of the Hull business at the time, back in 2017, 2018, something like that, about 10 years ago, and ran the entire business until, and at that time, lots of investment funds were thinking there's money to be made in this full fibre, and they are the only guys in the UK that have ever built it, and they've got all this IPR and they know how to do it. So we had a lot of people approaching us at the time to see whether they could buy the business and delist it from the stock exchange. And
when did that happen? When was that?
Then it was 2019. 20 years pretty much to the day.
Oh yes, you said, sorry.
20 years to the day pretty much when we floated. Yeah. So we're 20 years as a public company, and then Macquarie, the biggest infrastructure firm in the world, bought the business.
And is that when you decided to move on then?
Not really, because I thought it was a great opportunity again. I thought this will be good, because what they bought the business said that the prospectus, which you have to put together when you're buying a listed company, was we're going to buy the whole business. We're going to expand the fibre footprint across the UK, and create a huge business in the UK. And the first signs were very good, because that's exactly what we did. I think we announced 15 towns pretty much straight away from the back of the plan that we'd put together for Macquarie. North Lincolnshire, large market towns like Driffield and Bridlington, Scarborough, places like that, Goole, Selby, in North Yorkshire, Barton, Brigg, all those types of places we started building full fibre to. And the plan was to dominate the East Coast, to go all the way down down to Peterborough and all the way up to Darlington and do all that. It just became a bit tricky, and the funding was a bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So in the end, I decided with Macquarie that maybe it was the right time to leave. Again, would I have left if COVID hadn't happened? I'd spent 32 years at this business. I had lots of friends and family. I met my wife there, which is another reason for all this. Who you know, Diane. So I met her back in 1990 as well there. And I didn't really want to leave. But also I thought at some point I don't want to just get a gold clock and think they've done 40 years there. Yeah. And I wasn't seeing everybody, because we were all working from home at the time. Yeah. And you didn't see people at the lift or the cafe or the water cooler. Yeah. And it was an easier decision. And I got approached by a guy called Paul Howard, who
I know, ex-Cazenove.
He was a Cazenove banker, and he was involved in the first flotation here. And he was our broker, wasn't he, at one point? And he rang me. He was a chairman of a couple of companies, and on his a couple of companies, and they just he was involved in a small wireless business called Quickline. Very, very small business.
Small then.
Yeah,
very small now.
Very small business. Yeah, set up and run by a chap called Steve Jagger, who I did know, who was a very capable entrepreneur. And Paul said, we want to make this a big business. Well, there's going to be some funding coming in. They want to build full fibre as well across the UK, but in rural villages where nobody's really, it's too expensive to build, and nobody's really interested right now. But we think we can get the funding to do that, and there's government subsidies available. And just before Christmas 2020, so I've been with Macquarie for a year or so, And I thought, that sounds quite interesting. And I had a sleepover at Christmas and thought, yeah, I'll do that. So in January, I left KCOM. Had a small period of non-compete, and then I started a few months later.
And
as Chief Executive of Quickline.
Yeah.
And I was employed 35.
You employed 35 at the time?
I was number 35.
Oh, you, sorry. Okay, yeah.
I was number 35.
Yeah.
So I was only 34 in the business before that. And last month, I think we had 450.
Yeah, because there's been phenomenal growth at Quickline.
Yeah, so we did exactly what we said. The plan went pretty much exactly as we expected. At that time, it was difficult, and it is for any business, isn't it, to get talent into the business, but particularly in hot areas, and fibre building was a hot area at the time. But I had a lot of contacts, we brought a lot of people in, it was difficult to get subcontracts, I managed to get the right ones in, getting the right vendors in. So it was great fun building this business up and recruiting people, which was notoriously difficult. But a big part of our business was winning public subsidy contracts. Because building full fibre networks...
Just explain what that is. Please.
Sorry, yeah. So to build a full fibre network in an urban town like Hull might cost you £200, £300 per home passed. In a village, much longer runs, much more difficult, traffic permits and all sorts of things. It can cost you £10,000
per home passed.
Per home passed. Yeah.
Wow.
So anything up to that. So it's very expensive, and it doesn't really make economic sense to do it unless the government will support you, and they do. But you've got to win these contracts because others bid for them, and that's what we did. So we were going to bid for the East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire contract, which was one of the biggest contracts, about £300 million of subsidy. About £100 million of subsidy. And I said to the investor at the time, if we do that and we lose, we haven't got a business. And we still won't have enough scale, because it's all about having a lot of homes and a lot of... it's a scale game as infrastructure. We should bid for all the Yorkshire contracts, and there was 4 of them. And that's what we did. The investors were brilliant and supported us. I said, we're not too sure whether we can fund it all, Sean. And I said, we'll work a way out.
Yeah, we'll worry about that one. Yeah.
If we win these 4 contracts with the government, creating opportunities for the UK, for these people in these villages, we will find a way. Somebody will help us out. And that's exactly what we've done. We won all 4 contracts, which was £310 million worth of subsidy, as well as the private money that we were putting in. And then the banks also stepped up and supported us. So that's exactly what happened. And it's not just about broadband. This is, you think about it, this is what I say to the business, and I always think it's about any business. I think really at the heart of it, people work for a cause. I really do believe that. Of course, the money's got to be right. Of course, you've got to look after the basics and put food on the table. But actually, the best businesses, people believe in a cause, and a flag on the hill is what I talk about. And that is exactly what we had there. So we had 8 little words, which was connecting rural communities to a world of possibilities. We didn't just sell broadband. We changed people's lives. People were leaving villages because they had poor connectivity. There were old people, dare I say, who couldn't talk to their grandchildren, or they couldn't FaceTime, or whatever we do these days. And we go in and we create that family bond. We go and create job opportunities for people in areas. They don't have to leave their community that they've lived all their lives in, and that's what we do. Literally connecting people. We connect people, yeah. And I think it's lovely. So it sounds like you've had a very exciting... How many years at Quickline then? I did 4 years. 4 years? 5 years? Nearly 5 years, yeah. I've done nearly 5 years. So achieved a lot, so congratulations. Thank you, yeah. For much success at Quickline. Yeah. So why did you... Am I allowed to say retire, or is that... Yeah, well, it's a very good question. Everyone says that. So, have you retired or not? So I got to the stage where we'd won these 4 contracts, we were building building the network out, and I thought, I've done all this before. And we were selling the products, and it was great fun, but I'm getting... Don't say it. I'm getting to an age where
Because we're similar age.
Do you know what? My wife Diana retired 3 years ago, and I thought, we've got 2 little grandchildren, 2 little granddaughters who are lovely, and I looked after them 2 days a week. So I thought, maybe I can step down and do some non-exec work and and a bit of variety. So I agreed that with the board and the investors, and they were brilliant. So, but there's a lot of consolidation going on in the fibre sector right now as well, because it's a scale game and there's too many of us, and we all need a lot more scale. So I just decided, and with their support, that I would still support Northleaf, the investors, and Quickline, to see what opportunities there are and how we can make the best and create value for the business and the shareholder. So I've stayed as a strategic board advisor to them. So I'll be working a few days a month with those guys, and also start looking for the non-exec stuff.
Because you are on some other boards as well, aren't you?
Yeah, so I stepped down from the Tigers Trust, who you were with as well there.
Forgot about that. We were on that together, weren't we?
I was chair of that for 6 years, and Anita, you were a trustee, but you became too busy with the Pace business. And that was great fun because I love football. I was involved with the football club, and we were doing good for the community as well. So that was great fun. But I stepped down from there because you can only work 3 times.
There's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah, and exactly. And I work with I'm a trustee on a business that's called Run With It, who create English and maths opportunities for kids that can't find it easier to work in different environments, and we put them in the football grounds and the cinemas, and they can work out how many seats there are and do interviews with footballers and write comments and stuff. So it's just a different way of learning English and maths. So we help in that respect. So I do a bit of that type of thing.
Have you got your eyes on any other companies or organisations, charities?
I've said to a number of people, I just want to do interesting things with interesting people and have a bit of fun. So I do still like tech. Tech is at the core of what I do and have done for 30 years. So I'm still interested in that, and I'm having a few conversations with a few people about that. I'd like to do some good. I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but I do kind of like to see if we can give something back. Get a lot of reward from seeing kids or businesses or whatever grow and thrive. So I'll try and do something like that as well.
So what does a typical day in the life of Sean Royce look like now? Now that you're not working, God knows how many hours.
I've only done it from November, so it's only been a few months. And
you've been on holiday a lot.
I've been on holiday a lot and watched a lot of football games in different countries as well. So that's been great fun. A typical that's what's great about it is there isn't a typical day. I could have a day with the grandchildren, and then I could have a day on calls talking about technology, or then I could be on a board meeting, seeing how we can kind of help kids get educational attainments that they couldn't do otherwise, or all sorts of things. Yes, it's all great fun.
You mentioned very early on that one of the reasons you left the small accountancy firm is you like the people side of things. Yeah. How are you coping with that? Not seeing seeing as many people.
I think that's going to be the hardest bit.
Yeah, it would be hard for me.
I was saying that to somebody only yesterday. Actually, it is the people that you miss, and the being at home behind your PC or in the garden or whatever is fine for a while, but you do need interactivity with people, or I do anyway, social interaction. So I don't know, we'll see how that goes, but
we need to pop into Pace and have a cup of coffee with us anytime.
In Warehouse 6, which used to be a K-Com building.
It did, I know. Oh, we won't talk about that, we'll be here all day. Looking back over what has been a very successful career, again, congratulations, what would you do differently, do you think?
Okay. Again, I probably won't do anything. It's always a difficult question, that, because I think you end up where you are because of, and you don't really want. I sometimes think I don't want to change that because that's just part of who you are. I've always thought, and I've said it earlier on today, and I don't know why, because it hasn't really impacted my career whatsoever, but I always feel a little bit guilty about not having decent A-levels and having a degree.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do. I don't know why. Maybe it was just my old-fashioned way. I thought I went out too much and played too much football, and I had a great time at that time. And I was bright enough to do it, but I just didn't get those A-levels. But if I'm talking to kids these days about what they should do, I say don't worry too much about that, because it isn't what defines you.
And you've employed God knows how many people over the years. How many times do you actually look at that? Exactly.
Never look at the register. Look at what they've done in their working life, and you know what trumps it for me? Attitude as well. Experience and ability, clearly, but it's more about attitude than I totally agree with that. So, and I always say recruit for attitude, you can always train skills. There are certain jobs, so you just got to be a little bit careful with that. I wouldn't want to go into open heart surgery with somebody that's got a great attitude but wasn't 100% sure how to do the job. So you can be a bit careful, but attitude, you have to have the right people. That's the extreme example, but you have to have people with the right attitude.
What do you think's been the best? This is probably a really hard one when you think about all the people you've worked with. The best advice you've ever received professionally?
A chap called Kevin Walsh, who you know well, said to me, if you ever want to persuade a board or an investor to back you, start the story from the customer. He was all about the customer, wasn't he? You can't argue with somebody that says this is the right thing to do for the customer because of X, Y, and Z. Because it's so difficult to argue against that. So I think that's sound advice. I do like having a core purpose, and I do think if you're going to lead a lot of people, and I think I mentioned the flag on the hill or North Star or whatever you want to call it, I think that's really important. So that's really good advice that I received, and I think that's true.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of rally the team around a purpose, a core purpose, that makes a huge difference. So I think they'd be the two. Do
you think there's been anyone in your career or if you had to pick out a single person, who's had the most influence on you? You're going to say Graham Jackson?
Well, he was. I said people that back you. You always remember.
Yeah.
My two children are. Sorry, one of my daughter's a teacher, and her husband is as well. And teachers have massive impacts on kids and in your life, and you'll all remember a teacher or two that you worked with, good and bad. That's the same in business. People in business, if you throughout your 30, 40, 50 years, whatever you're going to work, people will have always taken a gamble on you at some point, I think. And you remember those people, just like do teachers. Graham Jackson was one of them. He took a risk on me. But I think the guy that I took most from was Kevin Walsh. So he was a guy who he had a marketeer sales background, like you do, Anita. I'd come from a finance background. I'd gone to work for this guy, and I was thinking, I'm not too sure. I've always worked for engineers or accountants.
And he was a true marketeer. I shouldn't say in the past tense. He's a marketeer.
Oh yeah, and he always had wild and wonderful ideas. But he was very very strict and old fashioned in his ways as well. In that respect, but he was. He for me taught me an awful lot about the customer and how the brand was as important as anything else.
Now you haven't got the daily pressures of working full time. Is there anything that keeps you awake at night?
Not really.
Oh, what a nice place to be.
Yeah, it is. It's all the health and all that type of thing. Yeah. All that's fine. I worry about the kids and the grandchildren, still do. I don't think that'll ever go. I'm sure you will as well, Anita, with Mia and Pippa. Yeah. And what the future brings for them, because the future of work for those guys is going to be very different to what we were used to, as we said earlier on. And will AI replace their jobs? And I'm a firm believer in every revolution, industrial revolution or the technology revolution and the AI revolution that we're going to go through, will create jobs.
Different jobs.
There'll just be different jobs and different skills. Yeah. So I'm confident that will be the case again. So you worry about your children, you worry about your family and friends. But right now, it doesn't keep me awake at night, but I am going into a different phase of my life where I'm not going to be getting up and working all those hours, but seeing lots of people and being challenged mentally. And how do I keep my mind occupied? And because you didn't have to worry about that before, because it was always always a challenge, as you know. There's always a people challenge or a technology challenge or an investment challenge that you got to make a decision on. Does that mean your brain stops? Does that mean the world? So that's why it's really important for me to continue
keep your toe in,
doing work in whatever shape or form that might be.
What if you could change one thing about yourself? What do you think that would be?
I've always been confident in my own ability, so that's good. I've always been data driven, because I'm an accountant at heart. I am relatively creative for an accountant, dare I say, but I sometimes wish I wasn't as data-driven.
Really?
And you could be a bit more gut.
Right,
I'll go on my gut instinct. Because my gut instinct, by and large, more often than not, your gut instinct is right.
Yeah, it is.
And sometimes you can think, actually, you can convince yourself that the data tells you that's not right. And I think the best leaders do both very well. So I think that's something I would probably, looking back, could I make a decision quicker? Therefore,
I agree with that one with you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do ponder a lot about data and could I go left, could I go right, and then I go right, and actually I knew it was right all along. I could have done that.
Yeah, I remember that. But you don't. Yeah.
I do take a.
You're not impulsive.
No, I'm not impulsive at all.
No, you're completely the opposite.
And that can be, and sometimes that I can make that decision a bit quicker.
Yeah.
So because I can always.
Because you can always. It's worse not to make a decision than to make a wrong decision.
Yeah, exactly. 100% right. Yeah. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. Tell us. I'm conscious of time, so we are going to have to wrap it up. But tell us something, or tell me something actually, because I do feel like I know you pretty well. Tell me something about yourself that would surprise me.
Oh no, that's a terrible question.
That's a hard one, I know.
Yeah, that's a really difficult one.
I don't think I've asked that of anyone else.
You can't even prompt me on that because you don't know, do you?
No. Or would surprise people. You know, if you think about people who've worked with you.
I'm quite open, so I guess people know me because I am always quite open. And I probably prepare more than you think, maybe. Even for this, I've watched a few of the Pacecasts. I've had a look at that. I thought about some people think, he's quite laid back, and I am quite laid back. But I do prepare more than you think. I do,
right?
Perhaps, and I do think things through. Although I am data driven, I do think.
Do you ever really fly off the handle? Because you're quite calm. Even when you're not happy, you're calm. Do you ever just get angry or real excited or?
No, I do. I do have guardrails. So if you were to ask me what type of leader I am, I'm a collegiate sort of leader. I do like input and I value people's opinions. And unfortunately, that's why I suddenly start looking at each one of them and think, actually, there's a bit to that one. So it takes me a bit long. But So I am a collegiate leader, but I do have guardrails. So there are sort of red lines, and if there are things that go against my values, then I do.
What are your values?
That's unacceptable. Honesty, integrity. If I find out someone's lying to me on purpose, people say things that they don't mean, or they don't realise is wrong. That's different. But if somebody's, then that's unacceptable. Can't work with people like that. But apart from, it's probably that would be. I wouldn't fly off the handle though.
No. Do you think people? I should maybe ask someone who's worked for you. Do you think people like working for you? You think you're a good leader?
I think so. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a good leader if they like working for you.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So. I have, unfortunately, and you mentioned we've been through lots of reorganisation. I've had to let a lot of people go, but I've usually for me that's if it can be an elegant exit. I've always, and that was some advice I had early on. If you can make it an elegant exit for them, give them a reason to believe it's not them. It's not always possible, but more often than not, it isn't, or the business isn't right for them. Then that's the way to do it. Yeah. And I haven't fallen out with many people that have left, that I've had to let go as well. Good. So I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, it is.
Because in the end, we're all people, aren't we? Life is just too short.
Yeah, and it's never personal.
No, it's about business. And
sometimes you have to make difficult decisions.
And I find that quite easy. I know some people find it very difficult. I find it quite easy because I know it's the right thing to do for the business and for other people, and more often than not for the people that are leaving, because it's just not working out. They're not going to make a career of it. They're not going to enjoy themselves. Find somewhere else.
It's all about fit.
Yeah. And if you can make that exit, that last conversation that they have with them, an elegant one, and it is all about fit, and help them as best you can, and even then, I think that's the right way to run a business, the right way to run people's lives.
Yeah, I agree. We agree on a lot of things, don't we?
Brought up together.
We've literally grown up together. Yeah. Right, thank you. That's been very interesting. I've enjoyed our chat. Thank you very much for the time. I have got a final question for you that was left by our previous guest. I'm trying to find it here on this iPad because it's a bit small. Right, you actually know who the guest was.
I do know who he was very well, actually. Yes.
Oh, yeah. So the question is, and it's nothing to do with me, what have you learned outside of work that resulted in being one of your strongest leadership tools?
Oh, that's a fab question, isn't it? What have I learned outside of work that's been one of my strongest
That's resulted in being one of your strongest, yeah.
I think, I'll go back right to the start of the football and sport generally. So you play football or whatever sport you play, or participate in, from people from all sorts of walks of life. They might come from a difficult background, they might come from a very privileged background, but you're all in the same team. You're all on that pitch as an equal, and you've just got to get the best out of people. You've got to get the best out of your football team, in this case, knowing what, and people have different triggers and different personalities. So I think sport's brilliant for business leadership, because you have got to get the best out of people from different walks of life, different education backgrounds, etc., etc. And I learned that really quickly once you start playing sport. So that made it relatively easy for me when I started going to business, and the first time I was a manager of a person and then a team of people and all that you realise that actually they've not all come up and got A-levels and degrees and this, that and the other. And I find sometimes because of the background I've got, when I see finance directors or group financial controllers or whatever it might be, or lawyers start to run teams, they're only used, and they're not played in sport in particular, they're only used to well-educated people. Yeah. Who've got much different drivers to people that are just trying to put food on the table, or single mothers or whatever they might be. Yeah. So I do think that sport makes you understand that people are different.
Differences, yeah. Good.
And that helps leadership.
Well, great answer.
Well, I dubbed that one out, didn't I?
You did.
I hope Adam's okay with that one.
I'm sure he will be. Hull City this season, how are they going up?
That's a great question as well, yeah.
What's your money on?
I think they're going to fall just short, and I hope I'm wrong, but because they've outperformed and the manager there's done an amazing job. But I just think that they're already overperforming, and I hope they can, but I think they're going to fall short of the playoffs.
But if they go up, they might just come back down again.
Yeah, but that's the way.
But it's nice while they're there.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Let's hope they are in the Premiership next season.
Let's hope so.
Yes. Anyway,
with Pacecast on, but Pace
with Pace on the shirts. Yeah, $100,000. I'm not even sure we can stretch that. Right. Again, thank you for your time.
You're
really
very
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Love to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Enjoy.
That's it for this month, everybody. Thank you for listening or watching. Do hope you enjoyed this episode. We will be back next month with our next guest, but until then, bye-bye.